The Atlanta Braves got Jurickson Profar back for their win over the Angels last night, but they also lost Spencer Schwellenbach to a broken elbow. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Thursday, July 3rd. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Lots of stuff to get to today. I want to talk about José Soriano versus Bryce in the finale. I want to talk about what Jurickson Profar said to the media before last night's game, explaining what happened with his PED suspension, when he found out about it, and all of that stuff. But first, the shocking news that was at the bottom of the blue box that we get from the Braves when they have a bunch of transactions was the news that the Braves placed starting pitcher Spencer Schwellenbach on the 15-day IL with a fractured pitching elbow. Just incredibly frustrating development for a team that is now down 4/5 of their opening day rotation. Like on opening day, you had AJ Smith-Shawver in the rotation, who's down with Tommy John, not coming back until, honestly, I'm expecting 2027, right? He did have traditional Tommy John. That's typically the 15 to 18 month return. I'm expecting it to be early 27. Maybe he makes it back on the mound for a start or so in 26, but I think it's going to be 27 before we see him in the majors. Ronaldo Lopez, who made one start before a shoulder issue that resulted in shoulder surgery, and we don't know when he'll be back. He was in the dugout last night. Chris Sale, fractured rib cage. We do not know when he will be back, but he was placed on the 60-day IL on Tuesday, so we know he's out until at least mid-August. As I talked about on the show when it first happened, anybody who tells you they know he'll be back soon is speculating, right? We did not have any sort of timeline given by Sale himself, by the team, by anybody. And so I was trying to assume the worst and hope for the best. So I was thinking the earliest they would see Chris Sale would be after the All-Star break. Turns out now the earliest you might see him is sometime in mid-August. And then Schwellenbach goes on this. And what happened with this elbow injury is, Schwellenbach made that start against the Phillies over the weekend, set a new career high in strikeouts in the game, but when he talked to the media yesterday, he said what was going on was, and I have the quotes here. Give me a second. All right, during the game, the second or third inning or whatever, I started feeling what I thought was tightness at the time. And he's talking about in the elbow, tightness in the elbow. Quote, I've pitched through a lot. I pitched with a torn UCL in college, and it wasn't that type of soreness. I just thought it was tightness, so I went as far as I could, and they took me out of the game. I was in the training room after and was just like, man, this feels really tight. Then woke up the next day, and I was like, whoa, this is a little bit more than tightness. I came in, we talked about it, this is on Sunday, and decided to get some imaging. So he has an MRI on Monday that revealed there was a fracture there. And the good news on this elbow injury is the MRI, all the imaging showed the three big concerns you have with a pitcher when there's tightness in the elbow are all off the table. One, the UCL is intact. So there's no damage at all to his UCL. Obviously, when you tear the UCL, that's what requires Tommy John surgery to fix it. Two, the ulnar nerve, which is the main nerve that controls muscle movements in the hand and forearm, right? It's part of the brachial plexus, starts in the neck, and runs all the way down the arm. And the ulnar nerve's on the inside part of the arm, goes through, like behind the elbow into the hand. There's no sort of inflammation or issues at all with the ulnar nerve. Okay, so that's thing number 2. Number 3, the forearm flexors are fine. It's the group of muscles that's in the front of the forearm. This is what you use for flexing your wrist and fingers. You pronate the arm and all of that kind of stuff. All of that stuff is fine. Those are the 3 biggest concerns with elbow tightness. In this case, they are all fine, and this is literally just what he called a, quote, small fracture. I'm guessing, and we obviously haven't talked to the media here. I'm sorry, to the medical staff on this. I'm guessing this is an olecranon stress fracture, the bony tip at the back of the elbow. This is a common issue for people who throw overhand, right? For pitchers, for quarterbacks, that kind of stuff. And this is one of a couple different conditions that you could, that falls under the colloquial reference to pitcher's elbow. Okay. You typically just rest and rehab this unless the fractures are so bad they have to go in there and put a plate or a screw in or something to stabilize it. In his case, he said it was a small fracture, probably technically a microfracture. Orlando Arcia had one of these in his wrist in 23 and came back in like 3 weeks. I'm guessing this is probably, he's going to be shut down from throwing for a month. That's what the team said. He won't throw for a month, and from that point on, then they will reevaluate. So it's possible he makes it back in September. It's possible he doesn't. We don't know. I do think a lot of how they approach this depends on how the team does over the next month, right? If Atlanta just continues to have games where they get shut out, they had 3 out of 5 games were shutouts prior to last night's offensive explosion, you don't worry about bringing him back. You give him plenty of time to heal up, and you focus on 26. If the team has an offense like last night's and can do well, it's possible maybe you bring him back. You know, you do prioritize getting him back for the stretch run. We'll see what happens. I do find it really interesting that, like, when Schwellenbach talked to the media about why he thinks it happened, he believes it's because of his recent uptick in velocity. Now, he doesn't know for a fact. The quote here was, quote, maybe just the elbow wasn't ready for it. But who knows? Like they said, it could have been anything. And so, like, it wasn't bothering him that bad in the Phillies start. He threw 90 pitches through 7, 12 strikeouts, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk. He asked to go back out to the 8th, or for the 8th, and Snit said no. But when you look at the velocity, I can kind of understand the recent increase in velocity. So last year, his debut year, he averaged 95.9 miles an hour on his fastball, on his four-seam fastball. This year, he's averaging 96.8, so almost a full mile an hour higher. But his velocity took a significant uptick in late May. Okay, when you break it down game by game, and I wrote a newsletter on this morning over at bravestoday.com that has the chart and everything in there. He was consistently sitting 96s, maybe just barely over 97 until mid-May. This is average fastball velocity in each start, okay? And then the May 25th start, he averaged 97.5. The May 31st start, he averaged 98.2. If I remember right, he popped 100 a couple times in there. He averaged 97 and change the next start. Then he ramped back up to 98.2 for June 11th. And from there, it kind of came back a little bit, 96.9, 97.2. And then that Phillies start, with that elbow feeling like it felt, he averaged 96.7, which was his lowest velocity since early May. So he ramped the velocity up over late May and just about the entire month of June. And he believes that is what caused this injury. At the end of the day, pitching is just a very hard thing on your body. And from a from a risk standpoint, you can understand Atlanta's preference. Like, thinking about the Strider injury, thinking about this, the Sale injury, all of those things, the AJ Smith-Shawver, Tommy John, the guys in the minors who have popped and had Tommy John, blown out their elbows. You can think about the team's position of, hey, we're going to draft a ton of pitchers because we know we're going to need a ton of pitchers. And we're going to do our best to avoid paying huge sums of money for these guys in free agency or being locked into incredibly long deals for pitchers in free agency. We're going to try to get by with homegrown pitchers. We'll make key trades. We'll grab guys on what we think are value deals. A Ronaldo Lopez deal before he got hurt looked to be a great deal based on how he finished on his stats on last year when he was on the field. He did have some injuries last year, and again, a recurrence this year. So he's had forearm, elbow, and now shoulder issues since moving to the rotation. But you can kind of see Atlanta's idea here. And it kind of, if you think about it from a risk management perspective, we don't want to have a ton of money tied up on the injured list. It makes sense to try and just get as many options at pitcher as you can and avoid paying for guys on long-term deals because you don't want to run the risk of all of this money sitting on your IL. You get it. I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way, but you can understand the philosophy there. The Dodgers have a similar philosophy of we're going to grab as many arms as we can because we know they're going to get hurt, except the Dodgers also pay for those arms. They signed Blake Snell as a free agent. They traded and then extended Tyler Glasnow. Obviously, Yamamoto got that giant deal for like 15 years. They brought in Ohtani. I mean, they have a similar philosophy to Atlanta of we want to get as many starting pitcher options as we can, except LA pays for them. They give free agent deals because they have the financial resources. They don't care if that dude's on the IL, right? They have a ton of pitching prospects in the minors. They can call these guys and stick them into the rotation, the bullpen, whatever. They're also a lot more willing than Atlanta is to use pitching prospects in relief or to pitch bullpen games. The Braves don't really like doing bullpen games. The Braves don't like taking their relievers and taking their starters and sticking them in the major league pen. They want them to continue building the capacity to take innings. So it's a slightly different approach, but it's the same general philosophy. We got to figure out what's going to happen now. I do think, and I wrote this in more detail on Braves Today this morning, I do think you're going to see more aggressiveness at grabbing prospects and giving them an opportunity, right? It's likely that they could make some sort of trade or something if they can find a team who's willing to give somebody up. But right now, it feels like you're going to dip into your minor league depth, right? You've got Nathan Wiles, Davis Daniel, Jackson Stevens has made 3 starts in AAA and looked really good. Hurston Waldrop's down there. And Snit addressed this last night. He said, quote, "I keep looking and asking Alex, AA on up are candidates really. Hopefully somebody might be ready. We're pushing young guys all the time, and it may end up that we have to do it again. We'll just assess the whole situation day to day and see where we're at." So more on that in the coming days as we figure out what Atlanta plans to do with the first open spot in the rotation. That will be Saturday. Spencer Strider is lined up to start opposite Charlie Morton on July 4th for the opener against the Orioles. Saturday is the first day you will need to replace Schwellenbach, and we will see what they do at that time. When you look at the options in Gwinnett, you've got to figure out Davis Daniel started Tuesday. Wiles is the scheduled starter today. They got Jackson Stevens, last night. So I don't know who would be lined up. It feels like maybe Nathan Wiles could be that guy that they call on for Saturday, but we'll see what they do. Obviously, we'll talk all about it. The Braves will announce a rotation tonight, and when they release game notes for the finale, they may just do a TBD for now and not tell us until Friday, either before or after the game, who's going to start on Saturday. We'll see what happens. Probably depends on how much they use the bullpen tonight with Bryce Elder after having to cover 6+ innings last night of Dieter Fuentes. Speaking of last night, in just a minute, Jurickson Profar came back. He met with the media, then he went out and hit a home run in the game last night. Let's talk about what he did last night and what he said about the injury. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about Jurickson Profar a little bit. He met with the media yesterday after returning from suspension. And interesting interview. Okay, full disclosure, I was not there. I was not in the interview room. So this is all quotes from media members who were there. But as I understand it, Profar met with the team in the clubhouse and apologized publicly in front of the team before he went into the interview room to talk to the media. And when he went in the interview room, he did say that he wanted to apologize to everybody. He said the players, the coaching staff, the team, the fans, apologize to everybody for testing positive and being suspended. And we don't have a ton of quotes on the record from a lot of players. Ronald Acuna Jr. did go on the record, and he's moved on. Quote, "He's one of us. He's a member of this team. To me, he is like a brother. We all make mistakes. I think now it's just about turning the page and moving on." And according to David O'Brien of The Athletic, who was in the clubhouse, not for the apology, but in the clubhouse for availability, he wrote last night that other teammates said the apology seemed sincere. So from everything we can tell, the clubhouse is mostly over it. And Profar acknowledged that this not only put them in a bad spot early in the year, it's going to continue to be a problem for the Braves down the road. Quote, "I know I put them in a very tough position already, and maybe more when we play on the road or something." And he's referring to they're going to get booed. He's going to get booed. He got booed in Truist Park last night. He struck out in his first at-bat with runners on base, and he got booed. It was the first inning, bases loaded. Now, he did get cheered when he hit a solo homer in the 7th, which he said after the game that he didn't notice, but he does appreciate that. He said he was too locked in to really hear the fans at that moment. First home run he's hit as a member of the Braves. But going back to what Profar said when he first met with the media, "But again, I'm here and ready to go to the battle with them and give my everything that I've got to help us get to the playoffs." And again, reminder, if Atlanta does make the postseason, which feels pretty unlikely, but technically they are still alive, Jurickson Profar is not eligible to play. I don't even know if he's allowed to be in the dugout. I think if he's in the ballpark, he has to be in a seat or a suite or something. I don't think he can be in the clubhouse. I don't think he can be in the dugout. I think he's got to actually be out of there to do it, right? But the explanation of when he tested and what happened honestly isn't that satisfying. So you may remember his age 31 season, he hit 24 home runs, which was his career high, and he had a 134 OPS plus, which was also a career high by 19 points over 2023's 115. And he was asked if that was PED related. And his answer was, quote, "I think if it was PED related, I would have been suspended last year." He says that he unknowingly took the banned substance while trying to treat a sore knee over the offseason. He said that he had taken the same thing, not the banned substance, but he had taken the same over-the-counter substance, whatever it was, whatever the formulation was, the previous year when he was treating a sore shoulder. He didn't offer an explanation as to where he got the medication, why HCG would be in there. That's been a thing in baseball for a while. Manny Ramirez was banned for 50 games in 2009 for the same substance. And one of the uses for it's designed, it's a hormone produced by the placenta during pregnancy to thicken the uterine lining to support a fetus and to tell the body to stop menstruating. Some athletes have used it to help stimulate natural testosterone production after coming off of PEDs. Like after coming off testosterone or other sort of therapy to re-stimulate natural testosterone production. He was apparently, and this is the most frustrating part of the whole thing, Jurickson Profar was privately notified early in the spring that he tested positive. He had an opportunity to appeal under the MLB policy, and he did. The appeal took all of spring training, and supposedly the Atlanta Braves did not know about it. That's incredibly frustrating to not give the organization a heads up, right? Like, they signed Alex Verdugo. That was just, they signed him last week of spring training. That wasn't related. They didn't know about this. And Profar's quotes, honestly, don't engender a lot of sympathy. Quote, very, very, very tough. He's talking about spring training for him. Not being able to sleep for weeks and still practice and do everything that I had to do knowing that suspension was a high possibility. Miss me with that. I have zero sympathy because you had the ability to tell the organization and let them be prepared, and you did not do it. Now, he lost money. Like, he said that if he's booed, he would understand. They have every right to do whatever they want. Boo, that's their right. I made a mistake and I need to pay for it. And financially, he has already paid for it. $12 million salary this year. He lost $5.8 million of that salary during the unpaid suspension. But he's going to get the balance this year, the 6.2. He gets $15 million in each of the next 2 years. And so we really have to hope that he gets back to what he did last year. To his credit, I guess, he says he didn't take anything on purpose. Hey, quote, I didn't take anything on purpose, but I'm responsible for what goes in my body. I did the 80 games, and it was hard. It was hard, but I did it. And like I said, I'm responsible. There's no excuses. I don't know of many other times where an athlete has tested positive and voluntarily notified their team or their organization before the appeal process was done. I personally think that there needs to be something negotiated. Because remember, how every bit of this is handled is negotiated between the Players Association and the league, right? So, like, Atlanta doesn't get notified until the suspension's final because that's what the rules say. I do think that the Atlanta Braves need to be some of the aggressive, like one of the most aggressive parties in the next round of negotiations, saying when a player first tests positive for a test, like test positive under the PED policy, the organization gets notified immediately. Or a drug test is required prior to signing. We are allowed to drug test them prior to signing them. Or something. Some sort of insurance for the club. Because there is a punishment for the player. They don't get paid. They can't play in the postseason that year. The organization gets punished in not having that player. But the organization has no control over the ability to make sure that that doesn't happen up front. You're not allowed to drug test them. Every time you can drug test somebody is laid out and specified in that policy. You cannot arbitrarily drug test your own players. You can't do it. And so there needs to be something. It needs to be allowed in the pre-signing physical. It needs to be something. There needs to be notification to the team as soon as something happens. Imagine if Atlanta had found out in late February that Profar tested positive. They could have maybe gone out and added another outfielder better than Alex Verdugo. They would have had 3 additional weeks, an additional month to go out and try and find somebody. And instead, the ad they made that first weekend of the year was Stuart Fairchild because by the time they were told about it, it was literally the day the suspension was coming out, and it was too late at that point. The season had already started. Verdugo was still ramping up in the minors because he had signed the week before. So the Braves need to be the ones. We're going to redo a CBA in like 2 seasons. The Braves need to be one of the most aggressive organizations at going to the league negotiators and saying, we have to change the PED policy. Teams either need the ability up front to be able to test to protect themselves, or they need to be notified at the same time as the player when a player has failed, so that they can make contingency plans and even put a rule out there that says they can't leak it, they can't tell anybody, but let them at least make contingency plans so that during the appeals process, they can be ready if the appeal loses. Do something. Fix this. This is fixable. I don't know what they're going to have to give up to get that. That's a common sense change that is going to be combative because the league pushes for everything they can possibly get all the time. And so anytime they want anything from the players, it becomes a battle. Don't get me started on labor relations. I can do a whole show on labor relations and how both of these groups suck at certain times with the things they ask for in the CBA. In just a second, let's talk about tonight's series finale. The series is tied 1-1. Atlanta really needs to win this. José Soriano versus Bryce Elder. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby talking about tonight's matchup, José Soriano versus Bryce Elder. And I'm not going to do that thing I normally do where I talk about this guy being hittable and everything. I think we've seen the 2 extremes of the Braves offense in this series. Game 1, they were terrible. They got shut out. Game 2, they scored 8 runs off of homers, and they won easily. If you have Game 1's offense, you lose. You have Game 2's offense, you probably win. I don't know what we're going to get from Bryce Elder. Part of me wants to think that his struggles last time out was because of the terrible decision to let him warm up, make him stay hot for over 2 hours, and then go out and pitch. Philly took Mick Abel out of the game when the rain delay happened. Bryce Elder warmed up. The lineup cards had been submitted to the umpires at home plate. Like, that's why in the box score, Mick Abel shows as the starting pitcher for Philly. He's in there as 0.0 innings pitched because they got so close to game time, the lineup cards were given to the umpires at home plate. But when the rain delay happened, Philly banged Mick Abel and just said, we'll move you because you warmed up and everything, and then sat for 2 hours and 9 minutes. And they had a bullpen game, and Atlanta let Bryce Elder get destroyed and then had a bullpen game anyway. Like, that's the worst part, is Elder got blasted, and then you still had to run the bullpen for, what was that? He pitched 2 innings. He didn't get an out in the 3rd. So you had to cover 7 innings from your bullpen. At that point, just don't pitch Elder and cover the whole thing out of the bullpen, or leave him in there and just make him eat as much as he can. He threw, He threw 66 pitches to get through 2+ innings. Yeah, would the game have been unwinnable had you left him in there? Sure. Was the game already unwinnable? Yeah. Atlanta handled that wrong, okay? Like, I don't know what to expect from Bryce Elder. I don't have high expectations. But 2 things can be true at once, to bring back that old chestnut. He's gotten blown up plenty this season. It's really hard to argue that Atlanta handled him the right way in that start against Philly. Okay. Let's look at José Soriano, though, because this really feels like the kind of outing where he's going to, like, where Atlanta could struggle here. And it's been a mixed bag recently. In the last 5 starts for José Soriano, this is hilarious to me. 3 of them are quality starts. 7 innings, 1 run on 2 hits with 12 strikeouts against the Athletics. 7 scoreless innings with 6 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. 6 2/3 innings, 1 run on 3 hits, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts against Houston. Sandwiching those, so the last one and the first one of this 5-game stretch, at Boston, 3 2/3, 7 runs on 8 hits with 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. And at home versus Washington, 4 innings, 8 runs on 9 hits with 2 walks and 4 strikeouts. Like, he could be a dog. He could just get blasted. That's what José Soriano has done. And I know a lot of us, the default we're thinking is, oh yeah, he's going to get blasted. And maybe he does. His only start against Atlanta came last August at home. 3 1/3, 2 runs on 3 hits, 3 walks to 5 strikeouts. Only career start against Atlanta. And by the way, Elder has never faced the Angels. So there's no track record here for most of these guys. I think the only guy in the lineup who has faced Bryce Elder is Jorge Soler. He's batted in .222 in I think 9 at-bats or whatever. But this feels like the kind of game or the kind of pitcher that Atlanta will struggle against, okay? Hard-throwing righty, he averages 97 on his fastball. He above average on getting whiffs, 66th percentile, 27.4%. He gets hit hard a lot, okay? His average exit velocity is almost 92 miles an hour. It's 5th percentile. And his hard hit rate of 47.7% is 7th percentile. But the reason it feels like the Braves are going to struggle is José Soriano is one of, if not the best pitchers in baseball at inducing ground ball outs. 66.7% ground ball rate. 99th percentile. And the thing that this Atlanta Braves team does not really have is a bunch of team speed. Matt Olson is not that fast. Marcell Ozuna is incredibly slow. Sean Murphy is going to play tonight. Brian Sitker mentioned that. He also said that he doesn't see a lineup coming anytime soon with both catchers in it, so that's awesome. Let's just continue to let Marcell Ozuna go hitless and have a terrible batting average in place of getting both catchers in there, even for a game. But when you look at what José Soriano does, because of the high velocity on a team that feels like they've struggled to hit hit fastballs recently, a guy that gets a lot of ground balls on a team that doesn't run well from a team speed perspective, it feels like Atlanta could struggle here. For the team's lefties, they're going to see sinker, knuckle curve, four-seamer, split finger. A little bit of sliders, but it's mostly going to be those 4 pitches, and it's predominantly sinker. Like, they'll see 40% sinkers, another 10% four-seamers, 20% curveballs, 10% splitters, right? Couple sliders here and there. Righties are going to see sinker, knuckle curve, slider. The sinker has actually given up a surprisingly high batting average, like 301, but almost all of them, a ton of them are ground balls. He's given up exactly 2 homers off of the sinker. The average launch angle against the sinker is -9 degrees. They're pounding that thing into the freaking ground. And again, this just doesn't feel like a Braves team that does well against sinker baller pitchers unless they get hung. So the hope that you have to have is that the Braves just get some mistake pitches and can crush them. Because this feels like the type of game where maybe you get a solo shot, but a lot of your runs are going to have to come from stringing together multiple hits. Base hits, getting them through the infield, and or beating out throws to bases. And that's not really a strength of this Braves team. Now, we've seen them string together hits. Jurickson Profar started that rally last night. He had a single, Ozzie had a single, Sean Murphy homered. Then you got like a single and 2 walks, and then Olson hit a grand slam. Like, you got guys on consecutively, but all of your runs came in from the homers. And I just don't know how reliable it is to assume you're going to be able to get homers off of José Soriano. He's given up 4 all year. Like, that's it. He's given up 4 all year. He's thrown 799 sinkers, and he's given up 2 homers off of it. He's thrown 417 knuckle curves and given up 1 homer off of it. He's thrown 126 sliders and given up 1 homer. And the thing on the sinker, 190 have been put into play, and there's 2 home runs off that pitch. This does not feel like a game where Atlanta's going to hit a bunch of homers. If you're going in and placing prop bets on this individual game, take these guys to not hit homers. It doesn't feel like it's very likely today. Hopefully Atlanta's offense can do enough, Bryce Elder can do enough to get the Braves the win, because they absolutely need this. We will be back tomorrow with another episode. It will not be a live episode. My kids want to go to the pool for 4th of July. We have a tradition of going to get tacos every year. We're doing that with my in-laws. So no live show tomorrow, but there will be an episode of Braves Today on Friday. Do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we drop episodes, when we go live like we did yesterday to celebrate Alex Verdugo being gone, all that kind of stuff. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.